One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Tai Brown and welcome to One Question. Our guest today is Andy Fee. Andy is the athletics director at Long Beach State. Thanks for joining us, Andy.
Glad to be here, Ty. Excited.
Now, Andy, we're 6 months into your tenure there at Long Beach State. And of course, to get there, you went through the interview process. And when preparing for that interview, what did you find as the most challenging aspect to prepare for? And how did you actually do when that came up in the interview?
Well, Ty, great question. And I think for me, one of the most challenging aspects of the interview process is providing that personal, compelling story, obviously about your skill set and why you'd be great, but also being able to tie in your vision for the job. And as an athletic director, I'm 6 months in, so still relatively new, but I think they're really looking for vision. So it's easy to kind of as we're sitting here talking to talk about a vision and all those kind of fun things, but to be able to present it in a way that is compelling, that shows that you are fit for that university isn't as easy as it sounds.
And how did you do when you sat down and had to sell it?
So, I did a lot of prep, and as you were talking about prepping for the interview is really working and honing the message in a way that delivers, because, you only have a certain amount of time, whether it's, one-on-one with the president or chancellor, or, if it's a large committee or a smaller committee, you just don't know exactly how it's going to flow in terms of timing. So, what I wanted to do is make sure that my vision statements were concise, but painted a large enough picture that I understood what I believe on the outset to be the challenges and opportunities here at Long Beach State. And again, you just don't know. It's you're audibleizing on the fly a little bit, but I think that's the critical piece is having that really honed message that no matter how, if you can expound on the vision, or if you have to tailor it a little bit, but whatever that time is, that you hit the three probably critical pieces of your vision, so that no matter who you're with, when they walk away, they're like, okay, Andy's got a vision for this place, and I think he can take us there.
Right. And did you do extensive research in as much as you could, right, through media and internet in terms of Long Beach State and what you consider to be the three critical points of a vision that you need to sell?
Definitely. So, a lot of time on the internet searching, going on the main website of the university, looking at, their mission statement, their goals for the next 5 years as a university, speaking to people who, I know had worked here previously, colleagues who either knew, certain people that might be on the committee. So, you have to do your homework. And, I think that's the key piece is, it sounds easy and is a no-brainer that you would prep for interviews. But I think, to really find the connections, you have to really delve deep as far as possible into that process to figure out how are you going to connect with so many different people. And ultimately, they're all saying, well, how is this person going to be the right fit here at our institution?
Right. And I would assume outside of the one commonality that all athletic departments want, which is, a great student-athlete experience and a great education for your student-athletes, the vision is different for every interview that you go into. So, that definitely, as you're saying, took a tremendous amount of research for you to find the direction to go.
Yeah, every place is going to have, it's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So, outside of as you said, kind of that general goal that, we want our student athletes to have the best possible experience in the classroom and field of competition, what is it unique? Is it the community that is unique? Have there been historical challenges related to some aspects to the program? So, it sounds easy, but, you don't want to go in kind of, with the half answer of not understanding things, you know. And I think that's one thing I wanted to make sure is that, you know, if I didn't have a good picture of something, I didn't want to talk about it and then hit the wrong chord, so to speak.
Right.
And that goes back to prepping and really doing your homework.
Well, so you're I think 6 months to the day, correct? There in the AD chair.
That is correct. Today is 6 months.
Well, that's excellent. So you're 6 months on the job. What have you found to be your strength area so far as you work to wrap your mind around year one as an AD?
Well, you know, I like to believe, and I think, you know, one of my greater skill sets is communication,
Right.
and the ability to connect with people. And that was a big piece of the puzzle, I think, for my president, Jane Connolly, who is a very collaborative president and really, really wants people to work together, really believes in the team concept. And that's something that I pride myself on, and something that I find and that I want to be a part of. So, you know, in the first 6 months, I think what I've been successful in is the ability to connect. And, you know, there are a lot of campus partners that help us in so many ways. And, you know, I want to make sure that we never, you know, take them for granted.
Right.
So I think that what I've been able to do is really build some bridges here at Long Beach State. And that's something that I'll need to carry forward. And, you know, obviously that'll never end. But I think that's been a real key piece of the success we've had in my first 6 months, is that ability to connect with people and to really show them how they can help us and continue to help us.
Which is of the utmost importance continuously, but especially when you first arrive on the job. Now, your career, you know, early on you worked in operations and you worked in facilities, and then you pivoted it over to development. How do you think that pivot helped you get to where you are now in terms of being in the chair?
Well, I think it was just a critical point in my career. You know, I think I had been very successful in, you know, my path through the operations side of the house. And, you know, operations gives you a pretty broad view of things that are going on. But,
Right.
you know, we live in a time where revenue generation, no matter, you know, if you're Power 5 or Long Beach State or wherever you are, that's just something that every AD, no matter what their background, is going to have to, you know, be successful in. And so as I kind of look forward to, you know, what does that path look like potentially to one day sitting in the AD chair, that was something I felt that I needed to put on my resume.
Right.
And when I went to UC Santa Barbara, Mark Masseri, the AD at the time, gave me that opportunity to really transition from operations to fundraising, and I'll forever be indebted to Mark for giving me that opportunity. But, you know, who knows? Maybe I'd be in the chair today,
Right.
regardless. But what I would say is that I do think my opportunities grew exponentially to sit here, and prepared me for what I face, and I think most ADs face today, is, you know, driving more revenue, because there's just never enough of it. And, you know, it's just a challenge, especially at a public state institution, that we need to do a great job.
Well, I'll ask you one final question here relative to that transition. Was that a hard transition to make? I mean, a lot of people who work in college athletics understand the importance of revenue generation, but don't necessarily work near or in that department, and probably want to figure out how to make that type of transition and who would give them an opportunity, you know, if they have a background like you did in operations. So was that difficult, or was it difficult, A, to do, and then B, when you did it, was it a hard adjustment to do it?
You know, I felt it was a pretty smooth transition. I mean, you know, it's definitely a different job, but for me, I think, as I had mentioned earlier, communication skills are something that I pride myself in. So I always felt I was a very efficient and effective communicator. The ability to connect with people from a revenue generation side, and operations at my previous stops along the way, was responsible for booking rentals and outside events. So, you know, I had an understanding of driving revenue with a different type of revenue. But nonetheless, you know, that type of revenue was critical to each department in itself. So, you know, I think, you know, and I kind of laughed because people all along in my career had kind of said to me, like, hey, well, how come you've never worked in development? You seem like you'd be great in development. Why? I was just like, well, this is kind of where I started, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. But hey, I thought about that, and when I sit there and say I thought about it, I did think, well, how would I make that transition? Because it's not a no-brainer transition necessarily. So, like I said, I was given the opportunity, and I had to learn on the fly a little bit, and but I think my ability to develop relationships and build trust-based relationships was something that carried me forward. And learning the nuts and bolts of being a development officer and a fundraiser was what I had to learn. But I think I was lucky enough that I didn't have to learn how to build relationships necessarily. It was more, how do I transition from a mindset of operations to being really externally driven all day long.
Well, that was an interesting transition, and it sounds like you had the skills already. The opportunity just had to catch up to you, right?
Yeah, and that's what I say. In life, I think in my life especially, timing for me has been unbelievable in the opportunities I've been given. I think I've worked very hard. I think I've done a great job, but timing has seemed to always kind of work for me. And sometimes, maybe I wanted it to work more quickly in terms of the timing, but,
Don't we all?
It's just been really a unique path, I think, in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
But, it was, I think, to get back to your question earlier, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd be sitting in the chair today if I hadn't made that transition. And, I'd like to think so, but what I would say is it afforded me the opportunity to really broaden my skills, to build a body of work as an effective fundraiser and a revenue generator that, I think really put me in a position to get to this chair.
Right. Well, I'll say this. You're 6 months into it. You've had some success there up to this point. And, of course, we wish you continued success as you continue on as the athletics director at Long Beach State.
Well, Ty, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today, and best wishes to you and everybody else. And to all those listening, I wish you a great season and a great year.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. That was Andy Fee. He's the athletics director at Long Beach State, and this is Tai Brown with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.